Welcome to Tennis 2020, Real Talk. I'm Dewey Evans, and I want to thank Austin Tennis Academy and EKH Media for making this possible. This is Real Talk, real people talking about the things which are going on. Today we have as a guest Alexander Johansson, who is, well, he's many things, but for the purpose of today, he is the founder of Tennis Techie. You might remember him or think of him as the guy that does these interesting videos where he has the camera down in the corner and he comes in, he does a little flip with the ball on the racket and squats down in front of the camera and gives a speech. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm good. I'm good. Apart from we got the shelter in place news about half an hour ago up in Massachusetts. So, of course, prepared as a tennis player, roll with the punches, but that is nevertheless some news.
Where were you before shelter in place? So obviously now everything other than essential businesses
Yep.
are forced to be closed. I was curious to hear that. I hadn't heard it, and my whole family is actually in Massachusetts, in
Yep.
various
Yep.
places. So thank you for the news, and so I can check in with them in a bit. But
Yeah.
where was things up there at till this point in time, and particularly relative to tennis?
Yeah. Well, we actually closed down about a week ago already. Very responsibly, I think. I work for Longfellow Clubs, New England Tennis Academy, and so that was closed down. And we've been doing a little bit, very carefully, outdoors. Public courts have also been closing slowly. So and now finally we're down to this. So yeah, that's what it looks like up here in this
So
part of the world
middle
right
of
now.
March, does that still leave you in indoor season predominantly, other than high schools and things? I'm sure of getting started.
Yes, they were just going to start the high school season, so it was right at the transition. So in terms of timing, I guess it was good because it was the winter session that just ended up here, and the spring session was just going to start. So, but unfortunately for many players that that care greatly about the high school season, they've been working very hard, and now it doesn't look like they're going to get it, obviously.
Excuse me. I actually feel
Yeah, no
better.
worries.
I've had something for what I guess Saturday was 29 days, what, 31 days. I've had something, and I don't know if it was Corona crud
Wow.
or just some other crud. So I have this leftover cough, but it's less today
Oh
than it
yeah.
has been in a week. So I'm actually
Oh, okay,
feeling
good.
hunky dory, but if I cough occasionally, don't worry
Yeah,
about
yeah,
me. At least
yeah,
not for right now. Uh,
yeah.
Talking about tech, you like what is it that drove you to want to know latest tech, craziest tech relative to tennis? I mean, you're the guy that has really dug into it more than anyone I've seen.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how it's just kind of kept ramping up, and I don't know fully why it happened. Uh, Maybe I was a little bit deprived. Did not have that computer when I was a kid. Trying to make up for it now. But the other thing I think was it was just I wanted to become a better coach and utilize what we could. And the iPhone had just come out as I was well, I had already been coaching for a while, but the iPhone came out, and the big change from having to have a huge program on your computer and running back and forth with footage in order to do technical video analysis now went from that $3,000 price point down to a $4 app on your phone, and I felt like this is amazing. More of it should be used, and I thought we could do more with it. So I set out to create a skill building web app for players, parents, and coaches. It's about actually probably about 7 years ago now. So that's really how it started. And because I was doing video analysis and I was doing this app that I use primarily for myself and my students, I ended up speaking at USPTA conventions and things like that. And and one thing else led to another. I had a little bit Facebook page, and Nobody else was really looking into technology, so it kept going. People were interested, so then I started a web page, and we'll see. Maybe I do even a little bit more now as I'm
Yeah,
hunkering
right.
down.
Opportunity, right? One door
Yes.
closes and another opens. Uh, I
Yeah.
detect an accent, and certainly, with the name, where was home as a child?
Yeah, it was Sweden. So I grew up in the golden era.
Yeah,
It
so
was
he
it
right,
was
huge tennis culture, right?
incredible.
Hmm.
Yes, it was amazing. I mean, it's been hard to live up to that for Sweden. It's starting to come back a little bit, thanks to Magnus Norman, Good to Great, and all these guys that are working with that. But yeah, it was amazing tennis times. It was all on the heels of Bjorn Borg. We had so many people top 10, top 100. It was crazy. It was nice.
Yeah, I'm a little bit older than you are, and
Yeah,
certainly remember, I spent a lot of time at Longwood as a kid when Longwood was tournament was on grass. It was the week before the U.S. Open, um,
yeah,
and the clay court specialists abounded. So watching Borg play Vilas in a later round was an amazing thing to watch. And the Americans, it was kind of Harold Solomon and Eddie Dibbs, and Bud Collins had coined them the Bagel Twins, and they hit moonballs, and Bud Collins would be talking about it. They're bringing down rain because the balls would go so high, and they
yeah,
might have been the ones that brought on moonballing to 12 and unders in the U.S.
yeah,
So they're responsible. Have you checked
yeah.
in back at Sweden, and what's the situation there? Do you know at all?
Yeah, no. I mean, the overall picture is that we have the first real big effort, from my angle, from a distance, in this academy, Good to Great, that's led by uh, Kulti, Tillström, and Norman, um, where they essentially wanted to change how the players trained in Sweden. And initially, there was a lot of people saying that it was not going to work, but I would argue it has been working. And obviously, with those guys doing it for the genuine reason, um, that they have, and the mission they have, it's they've been able to pull in sponsors, a lot of relationships that they had, and it looks like they're doing a really good job. So we're
Yeah, I think
starting to
they're
get some younger
probably
kids
best
doing good.
known to most of us for the work done with Stan Wawrinka, right? That's
Yes, yeah, and
yeah.
and Tillström is coaching Monfils at the same time.
Ah,
So it's a very unique, unbelievable situation, because they have that direct uh, um, line between the juniors and the pros at the same time. So it's very unique, and they even had Dimitrov also had his coach within the academy for a little bit. So
hmm.
pretty unique situation, and they seem to be doing a lot of things right. So I'm
Do you
very
know
I'm
if
very hopeful.
tennis academies and things are closed in Sweden at the moment, or are they still operating?
I don't know. It seems, just speaking to my family, it seems like they're slightly behind in terms um, of how the events are unfolding, but I'm pretty sure it will kind of head the same direction.
So if we kind of get to the U.S. maybe and anybody in the world, right? There are a lot of people we having discussions with academies, various places, and most everybody is closed, totally closed. What types of technology can we look at as maybe here's an opportunity to dig in to work remotely, to work by yourself? What kinds of stuff do you know of that you'd suggest somebody might dabble in a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think one of the very first things now, uh, if you already have a match taped uh, from kind of above the fence in the back on one side, that's great. If you don't have that and you could get that before things shut down in your area, I think that would be very useful, because that's video that you can work with and do quite a bit with. So try try to essentially, if you can, obviously responsibly, and keep your social distancing, but play at least competitive set or a full match against somebody. That would be very useful. Could become very, very useful now in these times. And other than that, even if if you still have access to a court, maybe a ball machine, just do a little bit of close-ups of your forehand, your backhand, your serve, so you have that footage if you want to work with a coach from a distance when it comes to technical analysis during these times. So that would be the first thing I would look at. Now, if you do have that footage, obviously connecting with a coach. These are completely new times, so I do love the part of that coaches are going to have to look into it, and they're going to have the time to look into it. And I'm meaning new processes. And we'll be doing it hopefully at an extreme right now and testing limits, etc. So I would start looking at those different relationships, start talking to the coaches. Obviously, if you have a sports psychologist, that's a pretty easy one these days that you can do over Skype, etc. So that would be a good one. I think when it comes to your physical conditioning, injury prevention, getting stronger, this could be a good time. A lot of that can be done remotely. So looking into the relationships that you need to form now and options that you have. I'm going to try to start posting some things later on this week on Tennis Techie. But then the other thing you have then...
Is this on your website or Facebook page, or where would they look for it?
Yeah, I'm going to do it on my webpage, and I will link to it through Instagram and Facebook as well.
Okay, where would they find you on Instagram? What's your Instagram? I don't know what they call them, handles.
Yeah, it's Tennis Techie. You'll find it just searching for Tennis Techie, and the same thing in the groups on Facebook. That's where most of the coaches hang out. So yes, so I'll post that. I'll start posting and have kind of a rolling thing on the first page of tennistechie.com to try to help out. The other thing there, so I don't miss that, obviously, if you do have a full match, then there are different services that you can upload your video to and get statistics, etc. This is a perfect time to do that. And then further on, you can even go through that with your coach, etc.
Okay, so there are services which a player who maybe isn't attached to an academy or something where these resources are available, they could take and upload their video and receive back the video clipped up into different clips, or an analysis. What would they be expecting to get back?
Yeah, all of the above, depending on which service you use and what you're asking for. So I have, this is not a shameless plug, it's one option, and that's tennisfilm.com.
What is it? I'm sorry.
So tennisfilm.com.
Okay.
You can go in there and upload your video, and you can get a very basic analysis, or you could have a coach go through it for you and look for improvement opportunities, etc. And you will get the statistics of your match, and you'll get all the dead time cut out, and you can go in and filter. So you can go in and filter out saying, I want to see all my forehand winners, and you'll see them back to back, boom, 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 boom. So you can start drawing conclusions of, maybe I'm doing this very well when I get to that position, etc., etc. There's a lot you can do with that, and that's why I think if you can get one match and do this, it would be very, very powerful, especially if you haven't done it before. And it's a great time for both coaches and students to start getting into this if they haven't, because it's like any other tool. It's going to end up being about your ability of using it as a coach and as a player. And it's great for ownership for a player to be able to go through their own video and draw conclusions as well.
Are there things that they can do to review their own footage and to look for, would you advocate, are there any apps out there for charting? So And so someone could, and particularly a parent, right? So we're not only talking about
Yep.
players, but we have parents who are now on the sidelines also, and maybe they spend a lot of their weekend time with their child player at a tournament, and now might be an opportunity to develop some skills that they can apply once we get back out. So charting skills and things like that. Do you know of
Yep.
any apps that are out there that a parent might be able to watch their child's match and practice charting different things?
Yes, there's a lot of different ones. So my recommendation on that is find something that and you can test them normally. And a great point to it, because you can do this if you have this one match now, right? Um, I would make sure I use something that seems simple enough to where I will continue doing it. I think that would be one of the most important things, because what happens very often is people will do it one time and that was it, because maybe it was a little bit cumbersome. So watch out for apps that seem like they have everything and anything, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
See if you can find one that's simplistic enough to where you feel like you can handle the same one over time, and keep doing matches in the future. Because once this is over, it's going to be about how those stats are evolving over time through your matches, and especially if a parent is doing it, because then you can do this very frequently.
I know I'm become a camera video guy and a techie to a
Yep.
large degree. And I have cameras that I can have, and I know where all the buttons are, where the menus are, and I can almost without looking maneuver and manipulate things within the camera. And then
Yep.
I rent a camera, or I buy a new camera. And now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, where is that? How am I adjusting white balance or ISO or whatever it happens to be? And so as a
Yep.
parent, having an app that you use enough that you understand where things are and can move quickly, because sometimes you don't have a lot of time in between points. I have a friend who said he could watch and he could chart an entire match without ever looking at his iPad or his phone. He just knew where everything was and would be able to come up with the exact stats that he wanted because he used the same app all the time. And he was also religious about charting. If we get to where we're more back in an analog state, technology doesn't necessarily have to be something that's attached to a phone or something, right? So I could use a piece of
Yeah.
paper
No.
and chart
Yeah.
something, and still I'm getting more technical into digging into the weeds a little bit, little simple CDIEW. Could you do it? Did you do it? And that being the decision-making side. Was it in? Was it effective? Did they win? That being the execution side, and recognizing, well,
Yep.
geez, from that I can decide, is the player making good decisions? And if they're not making good decisions, it doesn't matter what the technique looks like, right? It's still going to be a bad decision.
Yep.
But if the decision's right and the execution is wrong, then I can dig into that video that you're talking about, and maybe I can find all of the instances where it broke down on the execution side and look at those.
Yep.
Are there
Yep.
coaches like yourself and others who would look at just that little area and then be prescriptive in what they give to a player and say, here's what you can go work on your own?
Yes. So that's what I mean, and I will. If you look for it on my website and on the Facebook page, you will find different kinds of services, and I will make sure I put that up on our website this week. But that's the powerful thing about these services. So if you upload one match, basically for the basics at a price of one lesson, you'll get all of this back, and a coach, your regular coach, can go in, depending on what it is, tiny learning curve, but now is a good time,
Mm-hmm.
and pull these things out, and it's just so different. if coaches haven't done it in a long time, now where all the dead time is removed and you can literally search for things, for events, and see them back to back, it is very easy to start drawing conclusions of this tends to happen when this happens, etc., etc., and then coach from that. So I think if possible, this is a great time to do that.
A
And
lot
then
of these things have
when it
a lot of these things have come down in price, right? You know, I think
yes,
when I'm 58, so 8 years ago for my 50th birthday, some of my clients banded together and bought me Dartfish, right? So
yep,
I think
yep,
it was like $1,000 or something to have this program on my
yes,
computer to be able to use. We're
yeah.
not talking about that anymore, are we?
No, 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 no. So for under $100, if you upload your video, and right now because the college season is not going on, you can get your basic video with that's connected to stats and chopped up, all the dead time removed, statistics, um, for uh, for around $60.
Okay.
And that's a match that you then can use, and you can have yourself, your coach, pulling from that match, going through that match for the next weeks, maybe even months, depending on what
Right.
happens to everybody now. That's why I want to, if possible, for people to set yourself up for that possibility, because beyond that, all you have is the technical part, which can be important, and you can do a lot of shadowing at home, and I think the tricky part there is to get some video that's realistic. So if you don't have that already, I don't know if you use one of these tees or something in your basement or in your room,
Hmm.
um, or you hang a ball from the ceiling. Just don't break stuff for your parents. But to get something realistic, right? And then potentially being able to work on it. So one thing I want to point out there, so I don't miss it, is for the average player at home, if you want to do technical things, there is video delay apps that you can use, both on your phone and iPads. And I think this is a great time to use those. So if you're shadowing and you try to shadow in real time and maybe with some movement to try to make things realistic, then these video delay apps are great, because you can go for 10 seconds, hit a couple of air balls, if you will, and then you can come back and watch yourself again, how you did it, and then you go right back to hitting again. So it would be one kind of creative way of practicing these days.
So it delays for 10 seconds. So I go out and I hit X number of volleys, and then I can have a 10-second delay, and I can go back and watch the last 10 seconds
Yes,
or something.
yes, yeah. You decide the delay, so you can go in whatever interval you want.
That's pretty
We
cool.
we yeah, we use it in practice quite a bit, and again, for the student, it can be complete ownership, because they can do it by themselves and get that visual kinesthetic feedback.
And is there a link to that on your website also, or where would we find out about that?
I would simply search video delay in the App
Okay.
Store, whatever platform you're on.
Okay. Because
But
it's
for
not
sure,
specific to
later
tennis.
this
It is
week we'll
something
put
that is general,
correct.
right? For anybody who wants
Yes,
a delayed, maybe I'm preparing speech and I want to be able to watch, do
yep,
it and then go back and see how I performed.
yes, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
I can think
So
of
it's
some
general,
other
but I'll
uses.
make sure. Yeah, I'll make sure I throw something in there later on this week on the
Okay.
site as well.
What's your thought on some of the things which measure racket speed or arm speed? So some of the things that you attach to the throat of the racket or the butt of the racket or somewhere like
Yep,
that. What's your thought
yep.
and experience with those?
Yes, same thing. I think in these times, perfect time to work on that. Obviously, you got to be mindful as a player, so you're not simply swatting in the air as hard as you possibly can and making contact with something. But they are you have to try to visualize that you're actually truly hitting, and you hopefully still hitting up with a little bit of spin. But I think it's one of those things that you can measure and improve, and you can do it these days. You would have to have you would have to make impact with something for it to work. But I actually looked up today for this interview. There is still a sensor that's still being sold. It's called Clip, QLIPP, and they're still selling on Amazon, and it's now down to it's 30 something dollars with shipping. And this thing is great because it will speak through your phone what your racket head speed just was on that last stroke. So if you have some kind of a tee with a ball on it at home that you can keep hitting, this would be a great time to use a little tool like that, and see how you can get more racket head speed.
Tennis is a pretty expensive sport, right? There are people that spend thousands and
Yep.
thousands of dollars per month, not just a year. You know, they spend
Yes.
tens of thousands of dollars per year. So, you know, if we're in a shutdown for a little bit of time and someone isn't able to take their lessons and they just moved that into technology, they could have a pretty good collection of tennis tech at their
Yep.
disposal when this is all over and figure out their end. You know, maybe we'll have some YouTubers that develop from parents looking for some side money and they're just reviewing all of the gear that they can possibly find over this period of time. We kind of covered
Yeah, yeah.
players. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
No, no. I think there's going to be a lot of a lot of content from clubs. I think is going to come out right now. What's going to be interesting to me to watch is how hard the coaches and students and parents are pushing to try to find creative and productive solutions, working with each other remotely. That's going to be very interesting to watch, and I'm excited about it. I'm
Yeah,
sure it's
so
going to be
that kind of led me into my
hundreds of
last
things
one.
I haven't thought about.
Yeah, so we kind of talked about parents and players from the coach standpoint. A lot of coaches on the sideline, and while a player might be freaked out, or parent probably more so than player, because parents tend to want a lot for their children, and when they can't get it, I should say we stress, because I'm a parent of three,
Yeah.
and I know I've
Yeah.
gone through those stressful moments with my kids. But we haven't talked about the coaches who are largely at a place where many of them are losing income, social
Yep.
or physical distancing. I've been told internally that we need to use the term physical distancing rather than social distancing, because we don't
Yep.
want to distance ourselves from each other socially, right? We don't want to. Tend to be social beings.
Yeah.
What can coaches do in this time to stay connected, to remain social? Because the bond between player and coach at some point in time is what keeps a player going forward. I think players start out playing for parent, and then they play for coach, and then they reach a point where they play for themselves, or we lose some of them. But
Yeah.
for those that
Yeah.
are in that place where, you know, coach is the person at the moment, what can we as coaches do to stay connected and to help our players at this time?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done through social media, you know, and depending on how many students you have or how big your club is, you can try to keep providing a service. Some of this is going to depend on whether or not the coach is even employed anymore. So there is, I think there are two sides to this, or two different things to consider. And there's one is you obviously want to keep the bond and keep things going with all your players, but at the same time you might actually be have been essentially fired or on furlough. So it's very, very tricky and challenging times. So I do think, to be realistic about it and to truly continue having a coaching relationship, I think coaches have to get very creative right now and essentially try to find ways of providing true value to their clients, and that could, I mean, between the physical side, which you can do at home, as long as you have, you know, big enough room, the mental side, which as coaches, maybe sometimes we don't have enough time to speak to our regular students as much about the mental part that we want. Sometimes it gets technical and it gets tactical. Obviously, we do speak to them about the mental part, but maybe we can do even more of that right now. Maybe that can be part of what we can provide. And then beyond that, these things of any kind of video analysis. Just gonna have to make sure that we make it productive and we work together. So I think both on the parents, students side and the coaches side, there will be a little bit of a testing period, and then obviously it's hopefully it can be on a level where both feel like there is still something going on and the bond is still getting stronger and player is getting better, and maybe the coach makes a little bit of money. So coming out of it on the other end, we should all actually be better for it. And
Right.
this is kind of a strong statement, but I think tennis in particular needed something extreme like this in order to have a chance of kickstarting more usage of technology within the sport. Because normally coaches don't have the time to do this. Most of them are paid hourly and not given that much time to look into new processes and merge the new world with all the knowledge they have.
Yeah, and the good coaches work a lot and they're tired at the end. It's a physically
Yeah,
demanding job. Tough to go home
absolutely.
and start digging into technology. I think if we're
Yes.
looking online, there's a plethora of people putting out content to stay active. The
Yes.
one that I've seen that I really like is a guy in Tennessee named Eric Voges, and Eric is being very creative in what he's putting out, and he's doing this Find Waldo thing, and I think it's really neat to see how he's engaging. Um, but I'm not sure all of it is necessarily positive. Are there any caveats that you would throw out as people are looking at all of this online content?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, from the beginning of when coaches started coming online, it is for good and bad sometimes because it means any content can be posted. So I think for coaches, I I think make sure you're not putting out content just to put out content. I think that's very important. Take your time, especially now, because at the end of the day, it is about the quality of that content. And then as a player, a parent, there's going to be more content than you've ever seen right now, and therefore it makes it even more important that you have somebody that's curating this, and and that can be your coach. It can be as simple as you take all the information in that you want, but at the end of the day, if you feel like it's it's a difference in what you've seen compared to what your coach told you, or it would mean some kind of a shift in how you think about things or what you're doing, then bring it up with your coach and talk to him or her about it to make sure that it is somewhat curated.
That's great information, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Although I guess whatever you had to do that was outside the house was all of a sudden canceled, right? So there might be a little bit of extra time, but I'm sure that you as a team are trying to make things work and figure it out there. Please say hello to Phil from us down here at Austin Tennis
Sure will, sure
Academy.
will.
Great friend to our owner, and
Yeah.
um, just thank you. If
Now
you
say
can
hello to
think of
Jack.
anything else to send along, we'll be doing this daily, maybe multiple times a day. We might even move into a thing where we have a segmented show, not sure. But we're
Yeah.
committed to being the conduit for information, not the filter for information. So what we want to do
Yep.
is bring it all in, as you said, maybe let your coach be the curator of what is going to be best for you. But here at Tennis 2020, we're just trying to get great information out there for people to be able to actually have something to curate. So thank you.
No, it's fantastic, and thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah. Well,
I personally, this has gone down really fast, and I'm hopeful I can be more helpful in the coming weeks. And if you want me to come back and talk about more specifics, I'll be more than happy to do so, because
definitely.
we do need to help each other in these times. That's definitely for sure.
We would definitely love to have you bring forward any information that you can for the people that will look for this and can increasingly look for this as maybe a great place to get good content.
Yeah, yeah, and I already know of some things that they're trying to get going way quicker than they plan to, in terms of tools to help distance coaching and even VR. So yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
I'd be really interested in VR. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
thank you.
We'll be back at this again tomorrow when at 11:15 tomorrow morning, our guest will be someone who was thinking of ways for people to do things in their garden, in their house, in very small spaces long before most of us. Our guest will be Mike Barrow with Evolve 9. Mike was one of the people who actually co-wrote the tennis 10s for the ITF. So the whole red, orange, and green quick start that we saw here in the US initiated largely with Mike and a few other people. So he will be our guest here tomorrow. We look forward to seeing you then. Until then, connect with your family, stay safe, look for ways to remain active, and know that we're going to get through this together. This is Dewey Evans, Tennis 2020. See you soon.